Hey, what's up guys, Mr. Azai here. So today I'm going to be doing a small review on or actually this is going to be a bit longer of a review, and it is on the War Robots Flying Robots. So these are currently the 5 flying robots that exist within the game, with the exception of the Yao Ming, which is a Titan, so that is it's going to be excluded. But other than that, here we have 5 robots. These are all the flying robots. Now, some may want to contest that Raven is a flying robot or Griffin is a flying robot, but I put those into their own category of jumping robots because I find that flying robots are played very differently than jumping robots. See, the thing that separates the two the most is the fact that flying robots will have in general, much more airtime, whereas jumping robots get a lot of airtime for a big boost of speed, but then they land and have a long cooldown. Whereas these ones can fly around for quite a while. I believe Aojun, Guang, and Quin are like 8 seconds, and hover can, depending on how you play it, you can get up to like 15 seconds of flying with hover, and with Nightingale, it's a lot longer. I think it's 15 seconds as well. So they have quite a bit longer abilities. But anyway, so these are the flying robots, and I'd like to review them in this one video altogether, so that there's just this one video that shows all of them, how they can work in the meta, and all that. So yeah, let's start with the most popular one first. So I'm not going to waste your time. I know that most people who are probably here for basically Aojun, because Aojun is the most popular of these robots. A lot of people do use the Aojun and want to know how to play the Aojun, counter the Aojun, etc. So yeah. So the thing about the Aojun in playing it is you often want to be running very close range weapons. You want your weapons to have about 350 meters range, unless you're using something like Avengers, in which case those have 500 meters range, but their optimal range is around 350 meters. However, with that being said, I do not recommend running Thunders, because Thunders are pretty bad. You can run Glories, but do be warned that with the flying robots in general, shotguns are a bit iffy. I do like them on the Guang, but I'll get to that later. With the Aojun, running a pair of Glories is a bit of an iffy decision. They're very just because of the nature of the flight, you are always up a bit higher on your enemies. So the thing is, you can almost never maximize the damage of shotguns, and similarly with scourges and calamities, if you get the closest to somebody when they're on ground level and you're flying, you are about 60 meters in the air or so, and scourges get their point blank max damage at 50 meters from somebody. So if you're running calamities, like, do be warned that you're not always going to be able to have the absolute best performance you can get out of them, but you can run them quite well, because calamities in general, like if you're running the Yang Li pilot and you have guidance operator on him as well, is going to be very good at taking out other Aojuns. However, in general, I think that some really good things to think about is, if you're looking for a cheap, good build, you can run Avengers. Avengers are always the go-to. They're getting a nerf soon, but they're still very, very prominent. I like these things. You can also run Redeemers. That's what I personally run on my Aojun. I do like Redeemers. They do quick bursts of damage, but you need to be careful with aiming them. You could try Calamities. There's also Embers if you like doing massive amounts of damage and taking out Titans really well. And yeah, lots of decisions with these, but all I have to say is, in general, you don't want to run really long range weapons. Like, I'd say the longest range you want to put it out is like Calamities and Dragoons, but don't put on like Kongdays and Trebuchets. Like, if you really don't have any gold weapons or any component weapons, then you should probably go to Thunders. Thunders aren't great, but they are very, very cheap. If you manage to get an Aojun and you just have absolutely nothing to put on it, Thunders are your absolute last resort. Now, when it comes to playing against the Aojuns, counters against the Aojun, and stuff like that, the thing is, while this Aojun is extremely powerful while it's flying, on the ground, it's not that quick. It does have quite a bit of health. It's sturdy, so it can take a beating, but like not like a tank. And it does get beaten buy a lot of tanks and stuff if you can catch it while it's not flying. What I recommend to counter this is running fast robots or another Aljun, because another Aljun, if you can force a different Aljun to use their ability first and then use your ability after them, then you could kill them when their ability ends. If you use a Phantom or a Loki or something, you could dodge their ability, run around, and then you could run and catch them behind the walls, because a lot of them will try to hide behind walls and stuff. So if you're in something like a tank, then you will definitely not be able to catch up with them, and they'll just get their ability back and keep attacking you. This is also why Aljuns are extremely strong against Titans. It's very difficult to beat Aljun with a Titan, and Aljuns 100% counter most Titans. So that is basically the majority of the review for the Aljun. I think that it is an S tier robot. Definitely, I recommend you use one if you can. It's a very good robot to invest in. It's a very powerful robot, and of all of these robots, I do think that it is the best attacking robot. Alright, so next I'd like to get with the Guang. So after the Aljun, we have the Guang. It's Aljun's little brother or something. Not actually in mythology, I don't know how it works, but the Guang is also one of the dragon robots. Its ability works the exact same. You fly up about 8 seconds or so of flying, you get your built-in weapons, and then you land. Now with the Guang, I would say again you want to match the built-in weapon, like the Aljun has his flamethrower, and with the Guang you'd want to match the missiles, which have 500 meters range, to have other long-range weapons. But I don't think that's how you should play it. I think that when you have these robots that have some sort of special ability while they're flying, something that gives them defense while they're flying, then you should maximize that by giving them close range, which is why I personally use storms on this, because storms are very good. Now we do have a shotgun nerf incoming, which will definitely change how it's played, but I do still think that it will have some degree of effectiveness. At some point I did run Scourges on this, but again, it has that same issue where when you're running Scourges or shotguns or anything really, you can't get that 100%, you can't get the full effect of Scourges in specific, because you can't get within 50 meters while flying unless they're slightly elevated. So I switched off to shotguns and I put a shot grouping skill on, so now you can probably still get that full of effectiveness while you're flying. So you can do a lot of good damage when you're in the Guang. You do need to be careful though, because the Guang, if you think about it, it's really just a power creep leech. The leech is just more powerful than the Guang. It's just I do like to run the Guang. I have 2 of them, but you do have to understand that you need to be very careful against leeches, because a leech is essentially just an Guang, but whenever it activates its ability, it can use the legendary pilot and just go faster without having to expose itself, and it also has the 4th medium weapon, and the built-in weapon is definitely much more powerful, redirecting damage over the little missiles. There are some cases where you could really outmaneuver a leech using your flying, but leech will usually beat you. You need to be very careful when fighting them. One thing that I always love to do when I'm fighting leeches is, since you can get a height advantage on them, and since I'm not using Scourges on mine, Scourges are definitely bad for doing this. If you're using shotguns and you have a leech that's rushing you with its own shotguns, you can actually just use your ability and fly directly over the leech, and it will lose its lock on you. And a lot of leeches really they run in, they wanna wreak havoc and make carnage, and they see all your teammates around and they immediately de-aggro off you, forget you existed, and start attacking your teammates while you're flying over them, and then you could land behind them, their ability ends, and try to beat them. Although it depends. It's essentially just a battle of last stands, because both of you have minimal health while you're landed. So Guang, it's definitely a good bot. You can run it in champions. It's not terrible. I run a hanger of each of these bots in champions, and they're all pretty usable. I'll give you that at least. The Guang, again, I recommend still close range weapons. I think that I don't really like how its missiles work. Even with the legendary pilot, I think that the missiles it uses should be like Orkans or Pinatas or something like that, because the little Hydra missiles just don't feel that powerful. You can also, if you want to run Hydras on this, it is extremely annoying, because you have the 3 missiles coming from each of your Hydras and the 2 missiles coming from the built-in weapon, and that is a very annoying setup. Hydras in general just are not that great. So yeah, that's about it for the Guang. Now when it comes to the Quin, one asks Adazahi, why the hell are you running this thing in Champions League? And I answer, I don't know, because it looks nice with marquises, and that's about it. This Quin, unlike its two older little robot siblings, Quin does not gain any significant benefit from flying. You see, there's one benefit that the Quin does have while it's on the ground, and that's its ability has 5 seconds shorter cooldown. It's only on a 15-second cooldown instead of 20 like the other two. And B, Alkin actually walks slightly faster. It's 5 kilometers an hour faster. The Alkin walks at 50, and the other two are at 45. Another thing that I noticed with the Alkin, but I didn't notice with the other two, and I'm not sure if this is 100% true, so do not quote me on this, but do keep it in mind. I'm pretty sure that if you are running something like Adamant Roadhog and you actually get the buff, it seems that with the Alkin, it's actually flying faster. I don't know if this happens to the other two, but the Alkin does seem to be flying like an Aojun whenever it has Adamant Roadhog up. But even that aside, Adamant Roadhog also is increasing its speed while walking, and it makes it just really, really fast. And that is definitely a skill I recommend on a lot of these bots. Adamant Roadhog on a lot of bots is very nice because they have pretty cool animations while running as well, because you don't expect like this massive bot to be running like a little phantom or something. But anyway, so the Alkin, let's get into the ability. The problem with the ability is you are essentially exposing yourself and you don't give yourself any protection. Aljun has stealth, Guang has resistance. Um, but this Alkin does not have resistance, does not have stealth, and a lot of people have been saying, oh, maybe you should get Quantum Radar and Shield Breaker when it's flying. I agree with that. Then they were like, oh, no, yeah, we'll do that. We'll give it to the Aljun, the one that needs it the least. Pixonic just straight up has said they don't want to buff the Alkin because they feel like it should be like a low league robot. I don't think that low league robots should exist. I think that all robots should just be usable with some quantity of skill. And with that being said, it is possible to use the Alkin relatively effectively, but due to its nature, the Alkin is unfortunately not going to be a good brawler. I have my Warbots video, if you've watched, where I actually originally, when I first started running my Dragon Hanger, it was the Ao Ming, the Ao Jun, and the Ao Guang, and I had 2 Ao Juns, 2 Ao Guangs, and 1 Ao Kin. And when I was running that, I had shotguns on everything and Avengers on the Ao Juns. And I was running this Alkin with gusts and it wasn't really working. I was having difficulty finding a good clip with the Alkin until I got one where it actually killed with the laser. And the laser reminded me, this laser is a 600-meter laser. Like, yeah, it's like Scourge's where it gets a little higher damage as you get closer, but I think that running, the best thing to run on this is Marquises. Not just because they look good, although mainly because they look good, but because they can really synchronize with that long range of the Alkin. The Alkin cannot be used in high leagues or even low leagues. I have a baby account that's like in Diamond League, and even when I was back in like Gold League and Silver League, I had bought an Alkin with that account because that I wanted to judge whether or not it was worth it to get it on my main account. And the Alkin wasn't really performing particularly well in low leagues. I still think it even needs a buff there for some sort of protection while it's flying, but as of now it's actually pretty competent mid-ranger with those marquises. The problem is if you're fighting other mid-rangers, if you're fighting like a Falcon with Dragoons, those will definitely take you out. In general, Falcon with Dragoons is just better than you. But you can be very annoying because the Marquises have like really fast fire rate and can dump out their clip pretty quick. But you need to watch out for other mid-rangers. So basically you want to be playing this as in just hope that everybody is running something like a shotgun and fly really far back and stay there. But again, I personally don't play mid-rangers, campers all that often, but it is definitely, it's still an okay bot, and I enjoy it just for that. Like, first of all, it looks very cool with marquises. Like, if you have 4 marquises, just put them on an Alkin, it looks so nice. But it's also competent in Champions League. I still need to upgrade it a little bit, but it's got some work to do. And for a robot that Pixonic recommends you use in low leagues, it's usable. It just really does need a buff. And honestly, unless you just have 3,500 gold to spare, I think that it's kind of overpriced for what it does at the moment. If it doesn't get a buff, 3,500 gold is a lot because it's just, it's a good introduction to dragon bots, flying bots in general. This is probably the cheapest of them. So I'd say look into it if you can afford it and if you'd like to play it and if you're in lower leagues. But I still do think that Pixonic should buff this, and if they do buff it, I can make a video reviewing just the Quin after the buff. Anyway, that's about it for the Quin. Let's get on to the next robot. Alright, the hover. Let me tell you about the hover. This thing has a whole cult on, like, the subreddit. No, not the subreddit, the forum. Like, Strider and hover are two very you either absolutely love this thing or you hate it. And that's how people who really like the hover and the Strider. I like both of them. Might do some dashbot things soon where I review dashbots, but for just excluding that idea, the hover is a very nice robot. I mean, I like the hover. I picked this up yesterday for $3. Pixonic had it as an offer. I'm really toning down on my spending in the game after the whole shotgun nerf, but I did see this, and it gave me a tiny bit of nostalgia because I used to have a hover back in the day. Yeah, the hover was like a revolutionary item at the time it came out, and it was such a cool robot. Like, as soon as it came out, I started grinding like workshop points to buy it, and I managed to get it, but then after a while I stopped using it and I sold it, and I kind of regret that. But now I was able to acquire it back for pretty cheap, and now I have it at level 8, and using this, it is just the same as it always has been, but now there's pilot skills, so it's even better. So one thing to note is, just like the Alkin, whenever this thing goes and flies up, it doesn't get any protection. It doesn't even get a built-in weapon, which is a very unfortunate part of this. So you don't have that extra power, you don't have the extra weapon. So what do you have? Well, you have superior mobility. With the Alkin, Aljo, and the Guang, all those, whenever they just fly up and then they fly and stay exactly on that plane that they flew up on, like they just can go straight. They can't go up or down. The Alkin, the hover, it can actually go up and down, it can glide downwards, and it is actually the only robot in War Robots with a passive ability. And that passive ability is that anytime that the hover falls from any distance, it activates these little jets on the side and it slows down its fall, so it descends really slowly. So like if you ever played Overwatch, it's like Mercy's descent. So it's a really cool passive. I do love that passive that it has, and yeah, it is fun for that. Whenever you press the ability first and you fly up, similar to these other guys, it boosts up really high up, and it goes really high. And honestly, if you just tap the ability and go like that, you just do that, you get that 7-second cooldown. It's a good jump. But if you want to use it as a fly, you can. You tap it and you can like really carefully gauge the fuel meter. This is the only robot with this kind of system where it has like a fuel gauge, and you can click it and hold it to try to fly for longer or shorter periods of time. And the hover can cross really great distances, and it is so blazingly fast. I remember when I first originally had my hover, they originally released it with 50 kilometers an hour speed, and this has gotten the absolute best speed buff of any robot ever. Actually, the hover in general has been buffed quite a few times, and I think that they should do similar buffs to the Alkin. But the hover is very fast. I mean, this is the same speed of a Phantom. It's 60 kilometers an hour. And if you give it Roadhog and Adamant Roadhog, enemies grab 3 beacons, you're running so fast. Now, one thing to be careful with this, like when you're running the Guang, Aljo, and Nightingale, you want to be in your ability a lot of the time when you're fighting. But with this, getting in your ability really does not give you as much of a benefit depending on who you're fighting. If you're fighting somebody using those new cryo weapons, 100% click that ability meter and they will waste all their cryo weapons shooting you down, and you'll absolutely melt them. I remember I used to love this for destroying Hayachis back when the Hayachi was really popular, and I would absolutely melt Hayachis with the Scourge hover, and that's what I'm actually running now. I tried cryo hover. But yeah, I prefer the Scourges. They do allow you to get, once again, since you don't have protection while you're flying, you can get that long range. But because of its mobility, if you find a player who's using weapons that you can counter, like those explosives, then you can actually get close and reap all of the benefits of having that ridiculously high damage. And so I do like the hover for what it can do, but there's a lot of like finicky problems. You can fly in the air, get sniped, and you really are exposing yourself a lot. So I'd say mostly when you're playing the hover, you want to play this thing a lot more. How do I say this? You want to be playing this ground based. Most of the other four are very air based. They want to be in the air as long as possible. For this, you want to be staying. Actually, even the Quin is kind of ground based, but like you could fly in the air because you want to get that gun ability, the little extra laser. But with the hover, you're really trying to fly it. You're trying to run around most places because remember, when you're on the ground, you're running about as fast as like the Quin when it's in the air, and almost as fast as the Guang in the air. You're really fast on the ground, and if you have like Roadhog skill, Adamant Roadhog, you're like so quick. You don't need the fly all the time. The fly will get you out of sticky situations. It can take you really fast to a beacon, but if you're fighting people, it's not always necessary for you to fly up because you're just going to expose yourself to more fire. So I definitely recommend trying to play this ground base and only using the ability when you need to fly. So that is something. So what I recommend, Scourge Spark. I hate Spark. Spark looks so bad, and I'm considering. I really don't want to do this, but I want to buy a Sting to put on that light spot, just because I think that would look nice with the Scourges. But a Scourge Spark setup is honestly the best setup. It's just Spark looks so stupid. Pixonic, if you ever watch my videos, please change how the Spark looks. It looks like a stupid water gun. Anyway, rant over. Hover, it's a good robot. It's very expensive in terms of gold, but you can component it, and it's actually cheap for components. So, yeah. Anyway, so the entire strategy of this, try to stay on the ground, try to stay low profile, use your ability to escape to get around to beacons, but you just remember, the hover's ground speed is extremely high. I mean, its health is also extremely high. It's not like not high like an Ao Guang while it's flying, but it's higher than like the Ao Qin. So it's really like what I see the hover as is like a midsection between Ao Guang and Ao Qin. Anyway, so that's about it for the hover. And now I'll get on to the Nightingale. Alright, so the Nightingale is a support robot. Of the dragon flying robots, it is the only support robot. Even running like, if you want to run those Alkin or something for range as a range support, this is the only actual healing support. And not only is it a support robot, it is the best support robot in the game, 100%. So support robots in general, like Raker is a support robot even though it doesn't heal. It can suppress the enemies. This thing, it can suppress, it can heal, it can fly, it can shoot, it can do everything it needs to do as a robot, support robot, and it's so good. While it's flying, it does put away its three weapons. It shares the same weapon slots as the hover, which I don't really like that. I think that hover should have another light weapon. Just saying. But anyway, it does share the same weapon slots as the hover. And the way it is when you fly up, there's these little conveyor belts that push the weapons back, and you can't fire it anymore. But you get a little built-in weapon. You get this little pew pew laser, and it's like shooting about, I don't know, a third the speed of a Magnum or something. It doesn't run out of ammo or anything, and it shoots a suppression shot. It shoots 75% suppression shot, which can be increased to like 87.5 with the suppressor skill, which is pretty good. Or is it 9? I don't know. But it really, I recommend suppressor and destroyer skill for this. Just saying, suppressor is going to be very useful for saving your teammates' butts, and destroyer is going to be very useful for actually doing damage while you're flying. But you don't want to run. This needs to be played nothing like an Aojun. Like when I first saw this robot, I thought this was just power creeping the Aojun, but no, this is nothing like an Aojun. It's a tiny little healer. You don't want to be aggressive with it when you're flying. I recommend using this around like the stage of the fight where there's Titans, because your Titans will absolutely love you if you heal them, and you can also suppress other Titans, although it's kind of weak to the Arthur because you'll need to fly around the Arthur to get suppressing like on its back spot, but you know, friendly, you won't be able to heal your friendly Arthur or friendly Aming or whatever. One thing to note with this actually, even though the whole healing cone, because this thing does not fly up as high as Yao-Ming. Yao-Ming flies up very high, and it projects this thing projects a little healing cone under it, or not cone. It's more like a cylinder. And a lot of people are like, okay, well, if you're not in that cone, then you can't get healed. But actually, there's a little hidden part of the cone above it. And if an Ao Ming or something that's just above you in general is still in the radius of the healing cone but not under you, you're still gonna heal it. Which is something to like just understand that. Like you'll look at the Ao Mings and maybe be like, oh well, I can't heal it. But like if you go under the Ao Ming, you can still heal it, which is just a really cool tip that you could use whenever you are in this Nightingale. Also, so now that we got all that, it's a support robot. It's not extremely high damage, but just like the others, the Ao Guang and the Ao Jun that have that like stealth mechanic, because whenever this thing's flying, it's got that stealth. I do recommend running closer range weapons on it, because after you have a very long ability, you're flying for a long time and healing for a long time. But when you drop down, inevitably, you are going to be like, you're going to have enemies around you probably because you get into the fight so that you could heal your teammates, and you're going to need something to give them suppressive fire. I run personally flamethrowers on it. I think that there's a lot of good things to run on it. Cryos are also an amazing choice. Usually with this you want to run things that have like that reload while firing mechanism. I just like flamethrowers because flamethrowers look very good on it. Um, but like reload while firing mechanism is definitely one of the more important things that you want to make sure of when you're running this, because it won't actually automatically reload the weapons when you go and fly up, which is a little bit weird, but that's just how it is. So yeah, Nightingale, remember you want to play it as a support robot. You may have gotten one of these from the event or a bunch of components to build one. You should definitely, if you know, you could try to get enough components for next event or enter giveaways or whatever. I'm just saying this is the best healer in the game, hands down. I mean, Tyr, Wayland, Minder, they don't hold a candle to it. Raker, nothing. Nobody will beat this in terms of just being good at healing, or just being good at support. I mean, there's a lot of other, maybe they'll add some new support bots, but this, as it stands, is one of the best support bots, and I run this in my hangar as my support bot, and I just love it. Now, one thing I recommend being careful of with this is, of course, those darn Ao Juns with the Ang Lee pilot. They will rip you to pieces. You see, what I do to counter them is I run a healing module. A lot of people, I recommend that you actually counter them using a, what's it called, a quantum radar module, so you could suppress them. But oftentimes you can suppress them before they've flown, and if you're not able to suppress them before they've flown, if you combine a healing module with your already in-flight healing, it becomes a pain in the butt to kill you, and also because you're small and flying around. So in general, the Ang Lee Ao Juns will probably be shooting another Ao Jun over you, but if they do shoot you, then you know, you could try landing, although that's nothing that I've tried. I always just, if you press the healing button, you'll usually survive them, and then you could suppress them, land on them, finish them off. But I also recommend trying a last stand on this. All of these you want to run with a last stand. Unfortunately, Alkin only has one passive module, so you can't run extra module on it. You can't also run, what's it called, anti-control. But I do recommend anti-control, last stand on everything. And then for the Ao Jun and this one, which are the only ones with actually 3 passive modules, you want to run like damage or something like that. I tried to, there's one thing that you could actually try with the Nightingale. If you want to play this, if you really, you got this thing, you don't like playing support roles, you want to play it like an attacker, there is one way that you could do that. And that is by running Battleborn modules. So if you run like 2 Battleborn and 1 Last Stand module, and you go fly around on this, and you could suppress a couple players and drop down. So as soon as you start the game, or you don't want to, you want to use this mid game, you spawn on a beacon and you fly up, and you have a lot of time to suppress everybody around you and get an idea of where you are. And then when you drop down, you've got all of the damage resistance from the Battleborns, and you could run like shotguns or flamethrowers and really take down people quite well. I have 2 Battleborn modules. I did try running that, and it's okay, but then again, I don't have that good of a reference point with it because my Battleborn modules are level 1, Nightingale's only level 9, Flamethrower's only level 9, so it's really just preference, however you prefer to play it. But what I recommend is you want to spawn like it as your 3rd bot, and you want to use it to heal all your Titans. So yeah. That's it for the Nightingale. And with that being said, that's it for all of the flying robots. And if you've stuck around through the whole video, this is going to be one of my longer videos as of recent. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, if you'd like to know more strategies with these robots, recommendations for weapon setups and stuff, or anything that I just didn't go over, then just leave them in the comment section. Hope you guys enjoyed my video. Mr. Adazahi, stupid looking octopus. I will catch you on the flip side.